And we're back with the President and Director Counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund, Sherrilyn Ifill, and former FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole. Mary Ellen, I want to start with you. You've studied the criminal mind. Where does this person fit in that, the shooter?
The violence that he exhibited is just so extreme. And with that manifesto, it gives us a little insight into his thinking. But what's really important to understand is when someone acts out this violently, they didn't snap. This evolves over a long period of time. It goes back to frankly, it goes back to when he was a small child. You develop your coping behaviors, you develop your outlook on life, you develop an attitude towards violence, and all of that evolves to the point where the world is a bad place to live. The world is filled with enemies. You hate people. But you can see it just takes years for that kind of thing to develop. And there's no reality check. There's no one that stands in and says, that's simply not acceptable. And then it gets to the point where people are merely objects. And that can also be supported by someone who has a personality type that has no empathy for other people and feels no guilt for what they do. So it's a deadly combination, but it's very complicated in terms of getting to the point where he walks into that church. So it didn't snap, it didn't start at the Trayvon Martin case either.
There have been other young men shooters like this. Is this in that same pattern? Or is there just something distinct about this? Well,
this case has a lot of distinctive aspects to it. The one distinctive aspect that is just chilling was his ability to sit and face his victims and interact with them for an hour. And they obviously were not threatened by him because they would have called the police. And then after the hour to stand up, there was no bonding that took place. So that suggests to me that this is someone that doesn't bond with other people. He stands up and he starts to kill them.
Sherrilyn, when you look at this, help us understand it.
Well, you know, in 2009, you may remember that the then Homeland Security Secretary, Janet Napolitano, issued a report. And in that report, she suggested that we were in the danger of people like this. She suggested then that right-wing extremist groups and white supremacist groups were ramping up, and they were in threat of radicalizing and operationalizing people like the people that were just described. And she was denounced for that report, as you may recall. As a matter of fact, at the time, then Minority Leader, now Majority Leader, John Boehner, specifically denounced her for using the term terrorist to describe what he said are American citizens who disagree with the direction that Washington Democrats are taking the nation. This was a report that she issued after the massacre in the Sikh temple, in which 6 people were killed, after 3 police officers were killed in Pittsburgh, in both cases by right-wing extremists and white supremacists. She was ringing the alarm bell that there is a problem. And it was politicized. It was put right into the well of partisan politics. So for African Americans who are well aware of this threat and who recognize that it exists and who have lived with this threat for many, many decades, there is a feeling of vulnerability, of not being taken seriously. The part that is supposed to bring us all together as a nation, Republicans and Democrats, black and white, is the safety of our nation. That's first and foremost. If you call yourself a patriot, if you say you love this country, then first and foremost you care about the safety of its citizens. And what we have seen too often is the safety of African American citizens sacrificed for the purpose of partisan gain, sacrificed because people are afraid to say the truth, allowing themselves to traffic in the tools of white supremacy like the Confederate flag. This has to stop. So we're at a moment where, yes, there are these people that have been described who are out there, and we can't find every single one of them. But we have a law enforcement apparatus in this country that's reported to be one of the best in the world. And we have had the alarm bell rung, and we have to see a different stance of our law enforcement apparatus towards ferreting out and using their power to find these kinds of individuals and to stop this radicalization.
Mary Ellen, are there warning signs for these kinds of individuals, and what's the structure for moving on those warning signs?
Sure, and I agree with you, because someone like this is who's already hating, I call them an equal opportunity hater. They're going to be drawn to this supremacy ideation, but there are warning signs, and there were many warning signs in this, and they occurred over months. And one of the most profound ones is leakage, and leakage is communicating ahead of time what you're going to do, and you tell your friends, or you may inadvertently tell an adult, but you communicate what your plans are. And then you have other warning signs. It's obsession with prior mass killers, and then it's taken on a persona of being someone that's a warrior, and that's what we saw in the pictures. So people can see that as he's evolving down the road towards violence.
But people did see it, and yet they didn't react in the way you would expect. And that's where, again, the atmosphere that we create about what the danger is and who these people are is critically important. You know, he had a friend who said, I heard him saying all this stuff, but I don't judge people. I think you get to judge somebody who's a white supremacist if you're an American citizen. But we've created a context in which, you know, these are people with just a different viewpoint than me. This is dangerous, fatal for black people. And I think we need leadership not only in Congress, leadership in law enforcement, to call this what it is, domestic terrorism, and we have to use all of our tools to get at that.
And for us to speak up as well.
Yes,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a moment with some personal thoughts about forgiveness.